Most members of the national media are either sleeping on Carson Beck or outright disrespecting the man. This is exactly what I wanted.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts, free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's Locked On Canes, talk about Miami's wide receiver room. Did Mario Cristobal and his staff build it the right way? And can they replace all of the production lost to the NFL and to transfers from last year? In recruiting, Miami's got massive official visit weekends coming up starting at the end of this month. Maybe the best collection of prospect talent to ever come to the U during OV weekend. Who are going to be the next Miami Hurricanes commits? But let's talk about the media either sleeping on or disrespecting Carson Beck. Danny Cannell of the Cover 3 podcast recently compared Carson Beck to DJ Uiagalelei at Florida State last year. You never want to hear that, but I don't believe that that is a fair comparison. I think Beck is a lot better, has been a lot better during his career, and has proven so much more than DJU ever did, right? We've got other folks that aren't necessarily outright disrespecting Beck, but are sleeping on him. And the reason why I say this is exactly what I want, folks, a lot of people at this time last year were dissecting, sleeping on, and even disrespecting Cam Ward. We saw how that turned out. Now, obviously, we saw Ward go on to the Heisman Trophy ceremony as a finalist. We saw him get drafted number 1 overall. But let's not forget, a year ago at this time, he's a turnover machine. The guy's terrible. Miami's not going to go anywhere with Ward. Well, I mean, unfortunately, we didn't reach our goals in the postseason, but Ward helped Miami have a really fun year last year, and he improved his draft stock from third day to number 1 overall, right? We like it when they sleep on or are disrespectful to Miami. Gives Mario Cristobal that bulletin board material, gives our fans and our players, for that matter, the us against the world mentality. And we know Beck is trying to follow in Cam Ward's footsteps, right? Go to Miami, play behind one of the best offensive lines in the country. Shannon Dawson seems to have a very quarterback-friendly offense. You get to go up against ACC defenses, not SEC defenses. This is an opportunity for Carson, and if he's getting slept on, I'm just fine with that. Now, here's another example of that. And again, I would not consider this person to be disrespectful of Beck, but I would say he's probably sleeping on him a little bit. And that's Joel Klatt of Fox Sports. Klatt, who, we know doesn't usually have a lot of love for Miami, but he just released his top 10 quarterback rankings, top 10 for the upcoming 2025 season. And he does have Beck in the top 10, but at number 10. And he's got him ranked number 10, despite the fact that a year ago, he had Carson Beck at number 1. So why the drop? Klatt says at number 10 was the guy I had at the top of the list last year. This year at number 10, Carson Beck. He said he comes in transferring to Miami. He's my number 10 quarterback going into next season. I'll be real honest, he says. I felt like this was giving him the benefit of the doubt. There's a lot of things that crept up both in season and now postseason about Carson Beck that gives me a little bit of pause. So there you have it. He's reluctantly ranking Beck at his number 10. Now, I will note that there are some quarterbacks that are ranked above Carson who have proven a lot less, have played a lot less than Beck, who has been in almost every big game and every big moment you can possibly have in the SEC. But listen, it's Klatt's right to project, right? If he thinks certain quarterbacks who come up on a lot of these lists, Arch Manning, who, despite his last name, hasn't really proven much of anything on the field yet at Texas, and, DJ Lagway. I'm not going to deny the talent. Obviously, Lagway hasn't proven a whole lot yet, but the projections are through the roof on him. So Klatt has Cade Klubnik, Clemson at number 1, guy who has proven a lot. Arch Manning at 2, John Mateer, who transferred from Wazoo to Oklahoma at 3, Sam Levitt of Arizona State at 4, Drew Aller, Penn State at number 5. That's the one everybody's so high on Drew Aller. They do have more talent for him to throw to now. They added Trevor Pena, but the Aller one is one that I will never understand because anytime you put that dude in a clutch situation, he turns into mud. But, Aller at number 5, Garrett Nussmeier of LSU at number 6. Now, if anything, LSU fans are probably using this as bullet board material because most everyone else has Nussmeier in the top 3, not, number 6. Lagway, Florida at number 7, Lenora Sellers of South Carolina at number 8, Luke Altmaier, Illinois at number 9, and then Carson Beck at number 10. Now, Klatt notes that Beck had the falling off from 2023 to 2024. In 23, just under 4,000 passing yards, 72.4% completions, 28 total touchdowns, just 8 turnovers. Then in 2024, Beck fell off to an extent, they say. I mean, if this is falling off, this is a good year still. 3,485 passing yards, 65% completions with 29 touchdowns overall, but with 15 overall turnovers. Now, Joel Klatt did note that some of that was on the Bulldogs offense, especially with their receiver core leading the country in dropped passes. Still, there was enough regression before his season-ending injury, which will now have some effect on his next season and some off-field issues that the slide from first to last in the top 10 was justified for Klatt. That's it. I mean, I guess like the guy goes through an off-season breakup, reportedly, and his Lamborghini was stolen, so people are sliding him down the quarterback rankings because of that. I mean, if anything, that stuff happens so long before the season. I'm not really worried about him being heartbroken come late August. I'm pretty sure he'll be over that by then. And also, I don't think we should downplay the stuff from last season at Georgia so much because having a wide receiver core that leads the nation in drops, that's a big deal because those were all reads that Beck made correctly and balls that he placed correctly that were dropped by his playmakers. So he threw for damn near 3,500 yards despite his receivers leading the nation in drops. Had they not led the country in drops, what would he had? 3,700, 3,800 yards? Georgia's offensive line, now they did have 3 guys from the O-line drafted, which is a little puzzling to me because they were 102nd in the country in rushing, and they were 57th in the country in fewest sacks allowed, which is bang average. So that wasn't exactly helping out your quarterback. Klatt notes he turned the ball over too much last year. He said, and then we get the injury. And listen, this is fair, folks. It's fair to scrutinize with the injury, which also was on the field, but now we really haven't seen him throw all offseason, and he hasn't been able to really generate any rapport with his new team or wide receivers. Just cleared to play recently and throw recently. He says we're now in the latter stages of May. When I'm recording this, he says he hasn't had a ton of time. I think that this injury is going to be a bigger deal than a lot of people want to lead on. Again, the opportunity to develop chemistry with the receivers during spring ball wasn't there, continued Klatt. And then even at Miami, let's face it, he's had some off-the-field distractions, let's just call them. And I don't think that's going to benefit anybody. I do think that he's a really good player, Klatt says. That's why I had him number 1 last year. And even with some of those things that give me pause going into this season, he's still going to be on my list, except this time he's at number 10. Disappointing year, injury. I think he can bounce back. Now, the stuff about him missing spring, it's fair. The good news is, and hopefully Klatt knows this, as of several weeks ago, over a month ago, Beck has been fully cleared physically. He's ahead of his benchmarks when it comes to the recovery from the offseason elbow surgery. He has started to throw with his receivers now, so he is building that chemistry, and he's got a few months to do that before the August 31st opener for Miami. So, and if anything, if I'm going to have a quarterback who's behind on that stuff, make it one of the most experienced signal callers in the country. Because I would imagine a guy like Carson Beck, when it comes to making up for lost time, someone with his experience level is going to be more equipped to do that than others. Now, there are external factors that work in Carson Beck's favor at the U. We'll talk about those when we come back, and we'll talk about massive official visit weekends. Who are going to be the next Miami Hurricanes commits? Miami's quest for a top 5 class continues, and we're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Oh, I'm only getting started with FanDuel. Yeah, the NBA playoffs are in full swing and the Stanley Cup playoffs. We won money again on the Florida Panthers. That team is so money with a big victory on the road in Carolina last night. Game 1. Florida Panthers are now 7 wins away from a second consecutive Stanley Cup. Let's freaking go. And the NBA playoffs have been awesome. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it so easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Guys, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Folks, whether you're an experienced sports bettor or you're just getting into it, FanDuel is so user-friendly. You're going to feel like a pro even after logging in for the first time. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I take you around the Atlantic Coast Conference, football previews, storylines, conference realignment, rumors, and buzz. Free wherever you get your podcasts and free on YouTube, Locked On ACC. So, again, folks, why I do not mind Carson Beck getting slept on. And also, let me say this. Even if you consider Carson Beck to be the 10th best quarterback in the country, I will take that. If Miami's defense is actually good this year, and I think they can be with all the new bodies they've added to the secondary, I think Miami's defensive line is going to be really good because Ruben Bain is going to bounce back. I think Justin Scott is going to be a monster this year on the inside. I love the Mohamed Touré addition to the linebacker core, and Corey Heatherman has a pulse when it comes to his defensive scheme and formations. So if Miami's defense is actually good this year, and if the offensive line and the running game behind Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyle, Shamar Brown, if they live up to our expectations and hype, then you know what? If you have the 10th best quarterback in the country versus the clear top guy from last year, I think you'll still be all right if your quarterback is number 10. But if you think Carson's getting slept on a little bit, again, I don't think Beck has ever been more motivated. Coming off the injury setback and the on-field setbacks from last year, change of scenery, final year before he's going to be drafted or trying to get drafted next year. It's a money season for Carson Beck to raise his stock for the NFL. He's never been more motivated. You know what? If you give Cristobal and Beck and the rest of the team a little bit of that bulletin board material, if they're sleeping on him, that's exactly the spot that I want to be in. Because everyone this time last year with Cam Ward, we forget about the disrespect. It's a turnover machine. The guy can't do anything at Miami, so I'm okay being in that position. But external factors at Miami. Now, obviously, Beck has to stay healthy. He's got to find his form when it comes to throwing the football again, which he's been doing for the past few weeks after not being able to throw for months following the UCL injury. So a lot of it is on him. But external factors at Miami versus Georgia that can play in his favor. You know, I talked about the offensive line, highly touted running game. And then how about playing against ACC defenses? Now, Miami does have some tough non-conference games. Notre Dame should have a really good defense opening up the season. And you play Florida from the SEC, who Beck is very familiar with. Beck, by the way, I know Florida fans they post the same video of him throwing an interception against him last year. He is unbeaten versus Florida. They realize that, right? Carson Beck has never lost to the Gators. So, but yeah, you do have some non-conference opponents that won't be easy. But going up against ACC defenses versus SEC defenses is another external factor that can help Carson Beck this year. Last season, Georgia went up against 7 of the top 30 defenses in the country. Miami only went up against 2. So that's a big difference. And all right, let's move on to questions from you guys. And again, as a lifelong Miami fan, I feel most comfortable when my team is getting hated and doubted. Okay. But let's move on to your questions. By the way, we're answering questions from the Locked On Canes insiders. click the link in the show description below. Try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. All right, we get this one from Omaha Kane. Are there any prospects that are taking official visits coming up that we should be paying attention to for a possible commitment? I can't speak for the timelines for all of these players in terms of when they're going to announce, but guys, from May 30th through June 22nd, Miami is going to have star-studded OV lists, including a bunch of players we think Miami is pretty close to getting over the finish line. So let's go chronologically. May 30th, perhaps my favorite remaining prospect in the class, Derek Cooper, stud, 5-star athlete, running back from Chaminade, is going to be visiting. This is a must-get for Miami for a number of reasons. Number one, Derek Cooper is simply one of the best players in the entire class, and he can potentially play multiple positions for you. He wants to play two ways at the next level, and he is our guy, Brian Smith from the portal, ranked Derek Cooper as his number one running back prospect in the entire class of 2026. So you want to get him, firstly, because he's a great player, and secondly, because how tired are we of top players leaving the state? Because if it's not Miami for Cooper, it's probably Georgia. So, we want to keep the top talent home in South Florida. So Cooper, May 30th, is a huge one. Also on that weekend, offensive tackle Lamar Brown, a player Miami really likes. Receiver Messiah Hampton from New York area. Those guys are going to be visiting May 30th. Supposedly, we'll see if this actually happens, USC committed offensive tackle Kenai Pepe, a player Miami would like to flip. Like, he's scheduled to visit that weekend, but I'm doubtful if that actually happens because he's committed to USC, and Lincoln Riley is one of those coaches who has that rule. If you're committed to us and you take official visits elsewhere or any kind of a visit elsewhere, we will drop you. So, I mean, if Pepe needs to think long and hard, am I solid with USC? Because if he's solid with USC, he's not going to take other visits because, Lincoln Riley does not let you do that. So I don't know if the Pepe visit is actually going to happen, but he is supposedly on the schedule, according to 24/7 Sports, to visit that weekend. Defensive lineman Keyshawn Stansel from North Carolina, a player I really like and I think Miami likes, is going to be visiting May 30th as well. That's a big weekend. And by the way, there are a lot of other prospects visiting. I'm just listing the ones that I think Miami, in my opinion, has a pretty good shot with, okay? June 6th weekend, Breck Kolojay, top interior offensive lineman from IMG, is visiting. Jumbo tight end Jose Kent is visiting on that June 6th weekend. 280-pound freak of nature, runs like the wind, size of an offensive tackle, wants to play tight end at the next level, and Miami is recruiting him as such. On June 13th, running back Jay Lamar from Colquitt County High School in Georgia, familiar high school. He's close with Nikar and Kamal Bonner, who went to that high school with him. He's visiting June 13th. That's a running back we really like. June 20th weekend is loaded. Jason Lopez, slot receiver out of Chaminade, one of those dual sport basketball, football guys. And Lopez is an insane basketball player, and he might be the next Xavier Restrepo on the football field. If Miami wants Calvin Russell to play both basketball and football, we might have two of those guys. Jason Lopez might be able to do that as well. A lot of football fans don't necessarily want him to try to do that. Vance Spafford, Georgia committed receiver, Miami is trying to flip, is visiting then. 4-star receiver Jace Matthews, and two of our favorite interior offensive linemen, Cannon Pickett and Ryan Moret, are visiting on that June 20th weekend. So I think, maybe that weekend, coming out of that weekend, you could definitely see a couple of new verbal commits, because I feel really good about the way Miami's trending for Cannon Pickett. And I know Ryan Moret really likes Miami, even though he's like piling up the offers. And I noticed, because I get, I tweet sometimes and I get tagged in tweets about Moret. The Nebraska fans really want that dude up there, because anytime I see I'm involved in a thread that involves Ryan Moret, you got these Husker fans you got come to Lincoln, Nebraska. I don't know. How do they talk in Nebraska? I can't do the Southern accent there, right? I don't do Midwestern very well, but whatever they say, those corn-fed Nebraskans up there, they really want Ryan Moretz. So Miami fans, let's show some more love to our guy, okay? Someone else to watch out for. I don't think he has an OV to Miami scheduled at this time, but it could happen, according to Tom Loy from 24/7 Sports. And I agree with this. Miami is still very much in the mix for LSU committed wide receiver Tristan Keys, 5-star receiver. Ole Miss, which is his home state school. Hold on, I dropped my earpiece. Hold on. All right, we're back. Home state school, Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee are among others who are trying to flip Tristan Keys. So those are some of the players that I'm going to be looking out for. We get this one from the Giant Ninja. This is like, we're talking multiverse now, alternate realities. Let's hear him out on this one. He says, hey, I was just watching your episode with Bryant McKinney and having a blast listening to him talk about the 2000 and 2001 seasons. While I agree Miami got snubbed, he said, remember 2000 when there was a glitch in the BCS computer where they had Florida State play for the national title against Oklahoma, even though Miami beat Florida State that year and they both had one loss. Make it make sense. You can't. One loss and Miami had the head-to-head victory. But he says if we would have won it all in 2000, we might have never gotten a chance to see the greatest team ever assembled in 01. Ninja says, I think most of the players that could have left to the NFL would have. Everything always happens for a reason, he says. That's interesting. So you're saying that, had Miami won the title in 2000, a lot of those juniors or sophomores who came back for 01 would have said, you know what? I got my championship. Also, Butch Davis just left. Get me out of here, right? Whereas Miami players all had a chip on their shoulder after that 2000 season, and they needed to see it out in 01 and win that championship. That's a good alternate reality. All right, let's talk about Miami position coaches that are on the microscope, under the microscope, or potentially on the hot seat. We got a question about that. And let's talk about Miami's receiver room when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. Thank you for making us your first listen today. For your next listen, check out our guy Brian Smith on the portal. He takes you through all the big storylines, latest rumors, portal signings, NIL, recruiting. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We get this one from Bucks Canes in Evans, Georgia. Which position coach is most under the microscope this year? He said, notice that I said under the microscope and not on the hot seat. For me, he says, it's got to be Kevin Beard. It's year 3 for him with us, and outside of Restrepo, who he didn't even recruit, we've yet to see any of his recruited and developed as homegrown receivers step up. And given all of the production that we're replacing from last year and how young and inexperienced we are at the position, for me, it's time for Kevin to show us what he's been working on over the last 3 years. We all love Kevin, but it's ROI, return on investment time. You framed it well because again, we love Beard. And by the way, I believe in the job that Kevin Beard has been doing, even with the guys he didn't recruit. Because folks, do you remember, when I was out there and other media members were out there covering Miami practices and then just watching the games in 2022? That was the year before KB came back to Miami, and Josh Gaddis was coaching the wide receivers that year. What was a huge problem for Miami receivers, really outside of Restrepo? He was the only one who was not doing this. Drops. Nobody was holding on to footballs. Then Kevin Beard takes over in 2023. It's like he waved a magic wand. I mean, it's not that simple. They work really hard with Kevin, and he practices his guys well. But the drops became a non-issue immediately, right? People have scrutinized his recruiting efforts. Like, how come Miami missed on Jeremiah Smith is, the one that got away. But I think Miami's receiver room, and you saw what they did last year. Like Isaiah Horton was someone that we had questions about and doubts about last year, and he stepped up and had a great season. Jacoby George had a really good like bounce back year, because 2023 was a tumultuous year for George. He had a really good season in 2024. And yeah, this is going to be the biggest challenge yet for Kevin Beard, because you lost your top 4 receivers from last year, all gone, either to Alabama in the case of Isaiah Horton, or for Sam Brown, Jacoby George, and Xavier Restrepo, they're off to the NFL. Those were your top 4 wideouts from last year. So I agree. We have to see the progress, and I've been seeing it in practice. We need to see it in games from JoJo Trader and Nye Carr, who decided to stay at Miami, and Ray Joseph, who's probably going to get more opportunities this year, and Malachi Toney and Josh Moore, who he just recruited, who I think Josh Moore has a really bright future at Miami. And we'll see how the new guys fit in, because, Kevin's going to have to get everybody on the same page, right? CJ Daniels is new to the mix. Keelan Marion, Tony Johnson, who we did a special episode about yesterday. And I think Johnson, to me, is going to be a bigger impact than a lot of people realize. So, yeah, listen, Kevin Beard is under the microscope, but I have high hopes for this group, right? I mean, you don't have Cam Ward as your quarterback anymore. I think Carson is still really good, Beck. But Miami might lean a little bit more on the running game this year. But, yeah, you've got a lot of young, unproven receivers. Got to see them all get on the same page. I mean, if you're talking about other position coaches that are going to be under the microscope, Jason Taylor, Miami's defensive line did not produce enough havoc and enough sacks last year for my liking. It's easy to blame a lot of that on the former defensive coordinator and his philosophies. So this year, in a much more South Florida talent-friendly defense under Corey Heatherman, are we going to see Jason Taylor's unit of defensive ends feast this year? I hope so. I think so. And I think he's going to be under the microscope as well. All right, let's see. We get this one from, I don't know if this one was signed. He says, hey, how are the people feeling about Mario Cristobal playing the young guys at wide receiver? We seem to be conflicted about over-recruiting kids sometimes and not getting the top portal guy where they need help. So which is it, he says? Folks, to me, it's simple. I know you get fans arguing anytime Miami brings in a transfer. It's like, wait, how come we don't have faith in this young guy to play and we need to go and replace them with I don't view it as replacing players. Here's the way that I look at it. Mario Cristobal wants to have the most possible talent and depth on his roster at every position group. That's number one. You can never have too many good players, in Mario's opinion, and in mine, by the way. And you want to make sure you maximize Carson Beck to give him more than enough weapons this year, right? So when Miami goes out and brings in transfer receivers, you don't have to take it as disrespect. You just have to acknowledge maybe we didn't have quite enough depth. We need more depth, and we need to create more competition in that room. That's the way I look at it. And here's the other thing. I've had so many conversations about this with Coach Cristobal. It is so important to coach to have a layered room at every position group. What do I mean by layered? You want to have the right mix of veterans and young guys, because it's really important for Mario, for his younger players, to have veteran leaders to learn from. Because if you have a room full of first and second year guys and they don't have the mentorship from juniors and seniors, that's going to affect the rest of their career. If those players build bad habits because of that, not having guys in the room like CJ Daniels, 6-year guy, or Tony Johnson, 4th or 5th year guy, I think he's a 5th year guy, Johnson, to not have players like that in your room to learn from, that can affect your entire development. So layering that mix of veterans and young guys is important. And bottom line, folks, is the best players are going to play on Saturdays. If Malachi Toney or Ray Joseph beats out Tony Johnson, so be it. If Josh Moore beats out CJ Daniels, so be it. And they're also likely to rotate a little bit more this season than they did last year. I mean, we'll see how it plays out throughout, summer and fall practices, right? But last year you had such a clear delineation on your top receivers versus the younger guys that you really played your top receivers a lot. I think you could probably rotate a little bit more this year. I want to thank everyone for your questions. We have more questions we'll answer later this week, because again, I talk way too much. I'm long-winded. So a lot of times I've got 8 questions ready to answer. I'll answer 4 of them. We will answer more questions this week, and I'll also answer more questions on my mailbag column that's going to come out later this week on canescounty.com. So make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Canes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. We're going to have the portal overlord, Brian Smith, the recruiting overlord, with us on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.